Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 Shruti Sharma.
Hello friends, this is Vijay. I welcome you all to ForumIAS Hindu Daily. In our today's news discussion, we are going to discuss the 5 topics in the display. The first topic is related to hybrid electric vehicle, the hybrid EV imperative. So this is the article title. Secondly, we are having an article related to the clean cooking energy. So recalibrating India's clean cooking energy is the second topic we are having. Thirdly, we are having an article related to deep tech startup policy. The government issued the draft deep tech startup policy. So this is the third article we are having. Then fourthly, an article is related to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka envoy bats for land connectivity. So this is the fourth article. Lastly, we are having an article related to Akira ransomware. So this is the last article. So totally we are having 5 articles, and these 2 articles, they are highly important from the perspective of mains, right? So with respect to deep tech startup policy, I won't suggest you to do any research. So the article, what they are having in the paper is sufficient. Then with respect to Sri Lanka, we are having mapping. Then Akira ransomware is highly important from the perspective of prelims, right? Now without any further delay, let us dive into the discussion part. This is the first article, guys, the hybrid EV imperative. Okay, so with respect to this article, we need to know some historical facts. In 2021, in COP21, Glasgow, so the government, Indian government, they adopted the Panchamrit strategy. Okay, so under the Panchamrit strategy, we are going to attain the carbon net neutrality by 2070. So to attain the carbon net neutrality, carbon net neutrality by 2070, we need to focus more on the transportation sector, because there is a high amount of emission is coming from 2 sectors. One is energy and another one is transportation sector, right? So the article is all about the transportation sector. And here with respect to this article, the first question what they are discussing is net zero for a vehicle. What is net zero for a vehicle? So this is what they are discussing. So the net zero for a vehicle, it includes 2 variants of emissions. One is tailpipe emission and another one is the emission from the power plant. With respect to the electric vehicle, I hope you all will know we are using the electrical energy as a fuel source for the electric vehicles, right? So in this context, we need to calculate how much emissions we are doing in the generation of the electricity. So this is what the net zero refers. So net zero means we need to cut off the emission both at the tailpipe and at the power plant. Okay, so this is what net zero. Then with respect to the EV, we are having several variants of EV in India. The first one is hybrid vehicle, right? So this is the hybrid vehicle, and in the hybrid vehicle we are having 2 mechanisms. One is EV mechanism. We will be having electric motor for the transmission purposes, and another one the conventional IC engines, which will be fueled by the petrol or diesel, right? So there are 2 mechanisms we are having in the hybrid cars. But with respect to the conventional hybrid cars, we don't have capacity to charge the battery with the help of external sources. So we can't use any charging infrastructure to charge the car with respect to the hybrid car. They will be having their own inbuilt mechanism to charging and discharging, right? Then with respect to the plug-in hybrid, here is the plug-in hybrid. Plug-in hybrid is nothing but an advanced variant of hybrid. So with respect to the plug-in hybrid, we will be having bigger size of battery compared to the hybrid variants. Also, it will be having some external port to get recharge from the established infrastructure. Okay, we will be having charging infrastructure, right? From there we can do a charging for the plug-in hybrid cars. And moreover, with respect to the efficiency, suppose let's say the conventional cars, if they are giving a mileage of 15 km means, this hybrid vehicle, they can give a mileage of 30 km. Moreover, if we are using the plug-in hybrid means, then the mileage can reach up to 60 to 90 km. Okay, so this is the efficiency of the fuel, how the car have been using with respect to multiple variants. Then we are having full EV cars. In full EV cars, we will be having the battery, the bigger size battery will be there, and we won't be having any conventional IC engines. So here we will be following the proper recharging and discharging mechanism alone. Okay. Then lastly, we are having fuel cell EVs. What is meant by fuel cell EVs? Rather than depending upon the battery sources, we will be having an array of fuel cells in the car, and it will be producing the energy for the transmission purposes, right? So this is how fuel cell EV have been functioning. Then guys, we need to know the difference between the fuel cell EV and full EV, right? So for that, in the image, you can see that this is an array of battery, okay? This is a full EV vehicle, and here we will be having a array of battery, and we will be having electric motor. So this electric motor, it will also function as a electric generator during the regenerative braking mechanisms. What is meant by regenerative braking mechanism? In the past analysis, I already told you, while braking the vehicle, the kinetic energy will be converted into the electric energy, and it will get stored in the battery system, right? So in that way, we can optimize the efficiency of the vehicle, right? So with respect to the EV vehicle, we will be having array of battery. Meanwhile, in the fuel cell EV, we will be having a fuel cells instead of the battery system, right? So these are the basics you need to know. Then what are the net emissions of a hybrid EVs? So apart from fuel economy, an important metric is net emissions of a vehicle. Here we have seen about a net zero. In net zero, we are supposed to attain zero at both at the tailpipe and at the power plant. In that same way, we are calculating the emission both at the tailpipe and at the power plant. So this is the net emission of the hybrid EVs, right? So this is what they had given here. And what are the challenges transitioning to electric mobility? The first one, a successful transition to full EV requires fast charging infrastructure along the highway. Let's say you are traveling between Hyderabad to Bangalore. So the distance between two cities are almost 800 kilometers. And you are having an EV vehicle which can go up to the range of 400 kilometers. So after 400 kilometers, you will be requiring the recharging facility, right? So we need to keep the fast charging infrastructure all along the highway. Then only you can recharge the car and you can move ahead. Okay. So this is the first challenge we are having. In India, we don't have enough capacity of fast charging infrastructure. So if we are having fast charging infrastructure, means within 10 to 15 minutes, we can recharge our car. Okay. Then second challenge is, many parts of the world, especially economically developing nations, they don't have yet access to grid, or the grid is not 100% reliable. So for charging infrastructure, we might be depending upon the electrical grids, right? In the electrical grids, the stability of the power should be optimum. If it is not so, means then we will be facing lot of issues in the recharging principles what we are following. So it will also affect both the EV vehicles and also the charging infrastructure what we are having. In India, with respect to the grid, we are not having any synchronized grid. We are having 5 grids. One is the northern grid, and another one is eastern, then west, then south. These are the 4 mainland grids we are having, and for the northeastern states, we are having northeastern grid. But we hadn't yet synchronized the southern grid with the rest of the grids, and also we hadn't synchronized the northeast grid with the mainland grid, right? So these are all the few issues we are having. So to get the power stability, we need to first synchronize the grid, and the power output in the grid should be reliable. Okay, so this is the second challenge each and every developing nations is having. India is also included here. Then the third challenge, the mass market price point of cars in the economically developing world are much lower, $12,000, whereas EVs, electrical vehicles, are ranging between $25,000 to $35,000. Okay, so this is what they have been claiming. And here, with respect to the developing world, you all well know the production cost will be very lower compared to the developed nations like France, Italy, Germany, US. But with respect to the EV cars, the price will be double in each and every destinations, because we are infusing the battery mechanism in the car. It have been shooting up the price, right? So this is what they have been discussing as a third challenge. Then what is the role of the hybrid electric vehicles? The author, they have been insisting us that rather than going for full electric vehicle, because we don't have sufficient infrastructure and we are having numerous challenges, we can do a transition to hybrid EVs, because by adopting the hybrid EVs, we can attain the emission reduction and we can enhance the fuel economy. As I already told you, in the hybrid and plug-in hybrid, we are having the higher energy efficiency compared to the conventional IC engines what we are using. Okay. Moreover, in the hybrid vehicle, we can also do optimization by following the regenerative braking. I already explained about the regenerative braking. So while braking, the battery will be getting charged. So this is the fundamental principle of the regenerative braking. And the cost of the hybrid vehicles are only 5 to 10% higher than the conventional vehicles. So suppose, let's say you are purchasing the conventional car for 20 lakhs. And for hybrid vehicle, you will be paying 24 lakhs. So these 4 lakhs, you will be reaping the benefits out of it in the energy efficiency what the hybrid and plug-in hybrid have been providing, right? So we don't have any issues with respect to the cost factor also. Therefore, the article have been insisting us that rather than going for the full EV sector, initially, let us do a transition for hybrid EV segment. Then in the future, let us do a transition for full EV. So this is what the author have been discussing in the article, right? Now let us wind up this article here. Let us move on to the next article. This is the second article, recalibrating India's clean cooking strategy, right? So here the author is 𝐒𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐬. He have been discussing about the achievements what the government had made under the Gramin Vitrak Yojana, then under the PM Ujjwala Yojana. Then he have been discussing about the recent issues what the government and as a social sector we have been facing in India with respect to the LPG connections. Then he have been providing some alternative solutions in the conclusion part, right? So for past 15 years, government is trying to improve LPG adoption in rural and poor households, right? So before that, most of the rural people, they were depending upon the domestic resources like wood, cow dung, etc. and all, right? But they are a non-clean fuel and they are having their own social cost and the economical cost, because they will be releasing high amount of particulates and it will affect the respiratory system of the rural and poor women who are depending upon it, right? So that's what in the year of 2005 the government came up with several initiatives, and for the past 15 years government have been providing several schemes like a PM Ujjwala Yojana, then Gramin Vitrak Yojana to expand the LPG base in the country. With respect to the LPG, the government, they expanded the distributor base, which means each and every region, they should be having some sufficient amount of distributors. We all well known with respect to India, we are having Bharat Petroleum, Indian, then HP, right? So these agencies, they will be having their own retail agencies in each and every region, right? So we need to first keep the sufficient amount of distributor in the country. So that's what the government adopted, the Gramin Vitrak Yojana. So with the help of the Gramin Vitrak Yojana, the government, they expanded the rural distributor base from 18% to 16%. This is what the author have been discussing. Then with respect to the consumer base, consumers are nothing but a demand end. So in the demand end, the government, they kickstarted the program with the PM Ujjwala Yojana. That we all well known, it is a very popular scheme. And under the PM Ujjwala Yojana, the government, they had provided the gas connections to almost 9.5 crore rural households. Okay, so before that the consumer base was very lower and it was only in the range of 33%. Okay, so only 33% of the people were having the gas connections before the PM Ujjwala Yojana, but it expanded the consumer base of the country. Then what is the recent concern we are having? We all well know the LPG consumption, it has been boosted between 2005 to 2020. But what is the recent concern? The LPG consumption, it witnessed 0.5% reduction in the growth. So the government, they came up with several schemes and they expanded both the distributor base and the consumer base. But why we are witnessing the shrinking in the LPG consumption? So this is what the author have been discussing. So he have been quoting several facts. With respect to LPG, the share in primary cooking fuel previously was 33% in 2011 and it now boosted to 71% in 2020. This is what I already explained you. It based on the IRES survey. So it clearly states that based on the effort what the government had made, we actually expanded the consumer base with respect to the LPG in India. From 33%, we attained 71% in 2020. And it proves that Indian households' transition to LPG is favorable. The effort what the government had made, it already reaped the benefits. But we have faced several unpredictable circumstances in the past 3 years. What are those issues? The first one is COVID-19. So because of the COVID-19, most of the rural people, they lost their livelihood, right? Then secondly, we are having Ukraine crisis. So the Russian-Ukraine war also affected the supply chain of LPG, right? So it boosted the international price. And as I already told you, due to COVID-19, most of the people, they lost their livelihood and there is a volatility in the international market. So these two factors, it actually dampened the effort what the government had made for the past 15 years. So this is what the author have been discussing. Then with respect to the subsidy, by 2020, the government had withdrawn all the subsidy what it was provided to the people in the pre-COVID phase. So why the government had withdrawn? Because it was facing huge financial crunch with respect to the tackling of the COVID-19. Therefore, the government had withdrawn all the subsidy what it provided previously. Then in the financial year 21, the government had launched PM 𝐒𝐻𝐫𝐤𝐻. So under the 𝐒𝐻𝐫𝐤𝐻 Yojana, 3 free cylinders to all Ujjwala consumers had been provided. It actually driven the annual refill rate for LPG. So the refill rate, it stood between 4.55 for every active connection. So each and every active consumers, they are consuming almost 4.5 cylinders per year. Okay. So this is the benefit out of the 𝐒𝐻𝐫𝐤𝐻. But out of 24 crore free cylinders, only 14.1 crore were actually consumed, which means there is a poor demand among the people. People have been switching to some cheaper fuels. So this is what it have been proving. Then what are the other challenges we are having? The first challenge, India's high dependence on imports. So through the PM Ujjwala Yojana, we expanded the consumer base in country. In the pre-PM Ujjwala Yojana timeline, we were depending on the external sources for only 46% of our consumption. But in the financial year 23, we have been depending up for 64% of our consumption for the external sources like Russia, Iraq, Iran, etc. Moreover, the LPG price in the domestic market is almost doubled. In the year 2014, people were paying almost some 450 rupees for each cylinder. Today, they are paying almost around some 900 to 1000 to 1050 rupees. So the prices were escalated. So this is also one of the foremost challenge. Then there is a high volatility in the international market, and government, it is also unwilling to cut the taxation what it have been levying upon the LPG cylinders. So it have been actually fueling the issue, and people have been switching to some cheaper fuel sources. Okay. And moreover, if the government is coming up for subsidy, means it will be requiring 20,000 crore for providing the LPG subsidy for each year. And government is not in a position to provide the LPG subsidy, and they have been augmenting their fiscal resources. So these are all the few challenges we are having, which have been pulling India from expanding the consumer base of the LPG cylinders, right? Then in the conclusion part, the author have been discussing several solutions. What are the solutions we can think? The first thing is, with respect to accessibility and logistics, we can think of a pipeline connection. But we can rely on the pipeline, but the cost of erecting the pipeline will be very high. So it is a pricey solution. Then it is a time to diversify the energy. With respect to rural India, we almost attained 100% rural electrification. So with respect to the rural electrification, we almost attained 100%. And in most of the states, the price of per unit electricity is below 8 rupees, right? So if people, they are moving on for electric solutions for their cooking purposes, means it will be relatively budget friendly. So this is what SEEF study have been mentioning. So even at the price of 8 rupees, the electric sources are comparatively cheaper than the LPG. So it is a time to diversify the energy sources what people are depending. And moreover, rather than depending upon the LPG alone, we need to diversify the resources, because through the diversification of the resources, we can bring down the import cost and we can save the forex reserves, right? And moreover, by switching to electrical energy, we can also cut down the CO2 emissions and other harmful pollutant which are emitting from the combustions, right? So this is the another one benefit we are having by switching to electrical energies. And moreover, in today's context, almost 10% of the households, they have been using the induction heating. So among the 100 consumers in the urban landscape, 10% of the people, they have been depending upon the induction heating. By escalating the prices of the LPG above the threshold limit, suppose let's say the government is providing 7 cylinders, right? 7 cylinders at a normal price. So after the 7 cylinders, the price of the cylinders need to be above the threshold limit. If we are keeping the prices above the threshold limit, means people will be looking up for some cheaper solutions, then they will be started moving towards the electricity resources, right? So this is what the article have been discussing in a whole. Now let us wind up the discussion part here. Now let us move on to the next article. This is the third article, guys. Government floats draft national deep tech startup policy, right? So it is a draft policy. We need to wait and watch whether there is any changes going to happen in this document in the future. But with respect to the document, there are 4 key pillars are there. So through the deep tech startup policy, the government have been envisioning 4 key pillars. And I hope you all well known about what is meant by deep tech, right? So deep techs are nothing but disruptive technologies like semiconductor, artificial intelligence, then space technology. So these are the key examples of the deep tech, okay? So what are the 4 key pillars under the draft policy? The first one is ensuring the security of India's economic future. So we all well known the future is going to be get shaped by all these technologies like artificial intelligence, semiconductors and space technology, right? I hope you all well known India is a pioneer in space tech because ISRO have been striding with multiple victories with respect to the satellite launch. So I hope the space oriented technologies and all will be boomed under the deep tech startup policy. Then this policy is going to act as a facilitator for data driven economy. We all well known with the help of data, we can optimize the resource, right? So most of the advanced nations, most of the developed nations, they have been following the protocol related to the data driven economy. So in future, India is also going to get driven by the data driven mechanism. So for that, this deep tech startup policy is going to emphasize Indian government as a facilitator. Then it will bolster the national capability and sovereignty by emphasizing on Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative. So primarily, this deep tech startup policy, it is going to ensure the reliance of India on its own indigenous technology. Then it is going to foster ethical innovations with respect to the technology, what are scientists or what are technological hubs and all going to invent, right? So these are the 4 key pillars they had envisioned under the deep tech startup policy. And there are 9 focal areas are there under the draft deep tech policy. The first and foremost is R&D, research and development. We all well know India have been spending merely below 1.5% of the GDP on research and development. So under the draft policy, the government envisioned it is going to expand the investments in R&D. Therefore, we will be getting new innovations, right? So in the future, after getting the new inventions, we need to file a intellectual property right? So for that, the government is having separate platform to enroll the patents. So that's the second focal area. Then thirdly, it is all about the funding. You all well known for the startups, they won't be having any funding mechanisms. So to support them and to nurture them, we need to provide funding. For that, both the public funding and the private funding need to be streamlined. So I hope you all well known about the venture capital, then seed funding, right? So seed fundings are specifically, they have been focusing only on the startups. Venture capital is also like the same way, but with respect to seed funding, after providing the funding, they will acquire some stakes in the startup entities. Then after that, with respect to the deep tech draft policy, government is also stated about the infrastructure creation. So these tech startups, they will be looking up for infrastructure. So the government, they are going to create a pooled mechanism infrastructure, which is like a plug and play mechanism. So government will be having the infrastructure. These startups, they can utilize the infrastructure and they can develop new inventions. So this is how they systematically arrange certain things. Then they have been going to adopt the Euro standard and US standard regulations with respect to the technological inventions what they are going to carry out. Then the certifications, then the standard operating protocols, everything will be streamlined under the draft policy. Then apart from the inventions, we need to nurture the human resources, right? So for that, they are having a specific portal for capacity development. So under the capacity development, the human resources will be handpicked and they will be nurtured according to the interest of what they are going to show, right? Then we are having the sustenance, adoption and policy interlinkage. Here in the future, the tech related schemes and all will be enforced by the government with the help of both the external funding and the internal funding. Then after nurturing the startups, we need to ensure their sustenance, right? For that, we need to create a demand. So under the draft policy, they also clearly stated that in the future, the Indian landscape, it will be generating the demand for the startups what we are going to create today, right? So these are the 9 focal areas. They had been shortlisted under the deep tech draft policy. I hope in the future we will be facing some changes. There we will discuss it much more briefly, right? So let us wind up this article here. Let us move on to the next article. This is the 4th article, guys. Sri Lanka envoys bats for land connectivity. So I hope you all will know between UK and Europe, they are having channel tunnel, right? So like that, the High Commissioner, he has been stating that between India and Sri Lanka, we need to have some tunnel connectivity. So if we are having tunnel connectivity between the island state and India, means the shortest distance between both these countries will be only around 19 to 25 kilometers. So this is what he has been stating. And moreover, I hope you all will know recently, the economic vision document has been signed by both India and Sri Lanka. It clearly stated that they need to engage more on the connectivity with respect to maritime, air, energy, then trade. Then they also going to focus more on the people-to-people connectivity. Anyway, it is a proposal, but we need to wait and watch how it is going to drive the future relationship between India and Sri Lanka, right? So with respect to this article, we need to go through a mapping with respect to Sri Lanka. Here we are having Park Strait, right? So it is located between India and the island state. Then we are having Adams Bridge. This is the shortest distance between India and the island state. So in the future, if we are having any tunnel or any overbridge between the island state and India, means it will be constructed in this portion only, right? Then here it is Mannar. So this is one of the important coastal city in Sri Lanka, and recently it has been confirmed that the region is having some 5 million barrel potential of fossil fuel resources, right? Then in the Jaffna Peninsula, it has been expected that India will be establishing the refineries in both Jaffna and in Trincomalee, right? Then with respect to Trincomalee, it is a strategically important natural port which has been located in the Indo-Pacific region. Almost all the superpowers in the world, they have been showing high interest in establishing the naval base in Trincomalee, because if they are docking some 5 submarines in the Trincomalee port, means it won't be traced by any space satellites. So that is the advantage of having base in Trincomalee. Moreover, the superpower who is having hold over the Trincomalee, they will be having potential to patrol the entire Indo-Pacific region, right? So that's what China also have been showing high interest in acquiring the Trincomalee ports. Then we are having Battigola. Battigola is also one of the important port city which is located in Sri Lanka. Then we are having Adams Peak. Adams Peak is located in the central Sri Lankan region. So here we are having Adam Bridge, and in this portion we are having Adams Peak. Both are located in Sri Lanka. Then I hope you all will know Colombo is the capital of Sri Lanka, and the port city has been constructed by Chinese government nearby Colombo, right? So this is with respect to the Sri Lanka. Now let us wind up this article here. Let us move on to the next article. This is the last topic, guys. This article is related to the Akira ransomware and it is a prelims oriented topic. Here you need to know how Akira have been functioning and what are the measures the government has to take, right? So this is what we need to know, because while writing the answer related to the cyber security, we can quote it as an example. With respect to Akira, the Akira ransomware, it is designed to encrypt the data and it will create a ransomware node and it will delete all the data what you are having in your PC or in desktop. So after paying the ransom amount through any portal, it may be in the form of bitcoins, you will be getting the data back. So this is how the Akira ransomware have been functioning. That's what the government had alerted all the private organizations and the military wings, then all the public sector agencies to be aware of the ransomware Akira. So the ransomware get its name due to its ability to modify the file names of all encrypted files by appending them .akira extension. So because of this extension, we have been naming it as a Akira ransomware. So how does a ransomware infect the device? It is typically spread through as spear phishing mails that contain malicious attachment in the form of archived content. So it may be in the form of zip or RAR files, or it may be in the form of images link, or it may be in the form of any download link. So this is how it will affect your device. It may also infect your device by the usage of any external devices, which is in turn affected by the Akira ransomware. So if you are injecting any device into your system means, then you need to do a screening. So if not, it will get infected by the Akira. So this is what the government has been claiming. Then what can users do to protect against the ransomware? So they has advised users to follow basic internet hygiene protocols to ensure their safety against the ransomware, which means we are not supposed to connect any external devices. If we are connecting any external devices means we need to ensure the screening, right? So these are the few basic hygiene protocols we need to follow while surfing the internet or the personal systems. Then it also include, we need to take a backup of the critical data, which means the corporations or technological oriented companies who are working in the domain of IT, they need to take a critical backup for their data. So in case of any ransomware, they can use that critical data, right? So that's what they has been stating. Then CERT-In has insisted to carry out the periodic audits. So with respect to the internet hygiene and protection protocols, each individuals, corporations, private agencies, then public entities, they need to carry out the periodic audits. So this is what CERT-In has been advising each and every users. Then CERT-In also stating to restrict the usage of external devices, right? So as I already told you, while using any external devices, we need to do a screening, right? So this is what the CERT-In also stating. So these are the measures we need to follow to protect ourselves from the ransomware attack like Akira, right? Now let us wind up the discussion part here. Let us do a brief recap on what we had discussed in our today's discussion. The first article is related to the EV, okay? So in EV, we had discussed what is meant by net emission, what is meant by net zero emission, and what are the variants are there, what are the challenges. So these are the stuffs we had discussed in this article. Then we discussed about the cooking gas. So with respect to the cooking gas, what are the schemes the government had enforced in the past and what are the benefits the government had reaped in the past? Then what is the current scenario? What are the challenges? Then what are the solutions? So these are the stuffs we had discussed under the cooking gas article. Then third article is related to the draft policy, which is related to the deep tech, okay? So it is related to the deep tech, and here in this portion we had discussed some basics related to the deep tech and what are the focal areas the government envisioned in the draft policy. So this is what we discussed. Then we have seen an article related to the Sri Lanka. Actually recently we signed an economic vision document, right? So based on that, the High Commissioner have been asking for the land connectivity between the island state and the India. So here we have seen about few important places in Sri Lanka from the perspective of prelims. Then lastly, we have seen an article related to the Akira ransomware. So these are all the stuffs we had discussed in our today's discussion part. Now with this note, let us move on to the question section. So this is the mains question for you. PM Ujjwala Yojana accelerated the LPG push among the rural people. However, it lost its thrust. Renewed push for clean energy is timely needed. Enumerate the measures India can take ahead for clean energy in domestic sector to attain net zero by 2070. So this is the mains question for you. Based on the today's discussion, I think you can frame the answer for this question. This is the prelims question for you. This is the past year prelims question. Consider the following statements about the PVTGs in India. So PVTGs reside in 8 states and 1 union territory. This is true, right? Then a stagnant or declining population is one of the criteria for determining PVTG status. So this is also true. Generally, PVTGs are very low in number and they are having a declining population. This is the characteristic features of the PVTGs. Then thirdly, there are 95 PVTGs officially notified in the country so far. But it is not 95, it is 75. So far we are having 75 PVTGs officially notified in the country. So we can eliminate statement 3. Then Irula and Kondariri tribes are included in the list of PVTGs. This is true. Okay. So answer option 1, 2, 4 is the right one for the question number 1. This is the second question for you. The steel production industry requires the import of saltpetre, rock phosphate, coking coal and all of the above. These are the options they had given. With respect to saltpetre and rock phosphate, we are having sufficient resources. Moreover, we can eliminate answer option A and B. Then with respect to the coking coal, we don't have any sufficient capacity of bitumen coal and for the anthracite. So for these two variants, we have been depending upon the external sources. Therefore, answer option C is the right one for the question number 2. And this is the last question for you. Which one of the following is an artificial lake? So here the answer option A is Kodaikanal. Let us hold it. Then option B is the Kolleru. It is located in the Andhra Pradesh. So it is a natural lake. And we are having Nainital. I hope you all will know it is a tourist spot. So this is also a natural lake. Then the third one is Renuka wetland, which is located in the Himachal Pradesh. So these all three are notified in the Ramsar Convention. So we can eliminate all three. And Kodaikanal is having artificial lake. This is the right one. And moreover, this lake is highly polluted by the mercury. So the trace amount of mercury in the aquatic species is very high in Kodaikanal. So therefore, answer option A is the right one for the question number 3. Finally, we are arriving at the end of the discussion. I hope you would like this discussion. Kindly press the like button and subscribe us in all social media platforms. Let me catch you in another discussion tomorrow. Bye.